All right, ladies and gentlemen. So if you guys are unaware, there was a recent interview that was done with the CD Projekt Red developers, and they were talking about The Witcher 4. Now, if you guys missed it, Witcher 4 recently had a tech demo that, was made with Unreal Engine 5, and they were trying to convince everybody that they were going to be able to hit 60 FPS on a base PS5 with ray tracing on top of that as well. They utilized PS5 for their tech demo, and now apparently they are starting to walk back that promise little by little. They're not completely doing it yet, but they're walking back that promise little by little, and they're starting with the Xbox Series S, and they're saying that it's going to be extremely challenging to hit 60 FPS on consoles like the Series S, which makes you wonder what is going to happen with the PS5. Even though we know the PS5 is much more powerful, it's still something that's going to be extremely difficult to reach at 60 FPS with ray tracing. Had they said no ray tracing, I would be a little bit more inclined to believe them. But with ray tracing enabled, I find this to be extremely sus ever since day one that they announced it. So before we get into the video and the article, special shout out to the 90,100 of you that subscribe to the channel right now, and the over 50% that are not. Consider hitting that subscribe button today. I would greatly appreciate it. So let's talk about the CD Projekt Red promise. So remember, they opened up about its PlayStation 5 Unreal demo and said that it would be extremely challenging to get The Witcher 4 at 60 FPS on the Xbox Series S. The new interview came from Digital Foundry, where CD Projekt Red said they will be making sure it doesn't make the same mistakes that it did with Cyberpunk 2077 when it came to performance issues. Now, I've said before, and I'll say it again, the hardware that is available now in terms of consoles should not land them in the same situation as they were in with Cyberpunk 2077. To be quite frank, Cyberpunk, which is way too ahead of its time to be able to play properly on PS4, and they just didn't optimize it properly. They were focusing on the PC platform with that game, just like they did every other game that they released, well, up until now anyway, because apparently they're going to be console focused with the Witcher 4, but that's, we'll talk about that later. Apparently, I don't think the hardware is going to have the same amount of issues, but I still think that they are not learning from their past mistakes, even though they say that they are. I don't think they are, because the fact that you're sitting here and promising 60 FPS with ray tracing on a base PS5 makes me highly sus that you're going to be able to pull it off with an open world game in the Unreal Engine 5 that we all know is very clunky to begin with anyway. But this time around, CD Projekt Red says that they will be taking a console-first approach to ensure 60 FPS stability. However, the studio acknowledges that the Xbox Series S will be extremely challenging. So they have a video here that I paused at a very terrible moment. Let's full screen this and let's see exactly what they have to say regarding this entire situation. Let's play it. Here we go.
We specifically just saw that running on PlayStation 5. And I would say that it's actually quite against the grain from what CDPR had done in the past, where we would see, for example, The Witcher 3, or even I saw it multiple times at Gamescom, the wonderful PC CP2077 demos. But here we're seeing it demoed on PlayStation 5 at 60 FPS. So a 60 FPS target. So why?
I want you guys to pay attention to the wording, by the way, because they're very smart. Right? They've gotten a lot smarter. They're not going to sit there and promise you the things that they promised you in the past because they know they can't deliver. So now they're going to use wording like targeting 60 FPS or aiming for 60 FPS because they haven't hit it yet. They haven't been able to actually hit 60 FPS on these consoles, so they have to say that they're targeting 60 FPS, so that they're going to aim for 60 FPS. So just pay attention to the way they speak because it's all legally trained.
Show it off on PS5 first. Why target 60 FPS?
I think that when we started the collaboration, we had, we have super high ambition for this project, and we always, as you said, we always do PC and we push and then we try to scale down. But then we had so many problems in the past that we tried to see, okay, this time around we really want.
Keep in mind, they just admitted that they've always targeted PC as their platform, and then they would scale down, which I feel like is the right way to do it. Scale down, like, maximize your product, put your best foot forward on the platform that can handle it, and then scale down for the lower hardware of the consoles, but then make it an enjoyable experience. Even if it's less graphics or whatever, who cares? Make it a good experience for console players. But the simple fact is, They just can't. They can't because their games, like the way they develop their games, it was impossible. So now they're going in reverse.
Want to be more console first development, right? So and then we work with Unreal with our partner, and then we saw the challenge to realize the ambition that to make what we want as 60 FPS on PS5 would be there would be work, and this is why we started to talk.
So keep in mind the article focuses on Xbox Series S, but this guy literally just admitted that to get to 60 FPS with ray tracing, because they keep forgetting the ray tracing part, unless they're just going to pretend like that never existed and they never said ray tracing, but they said 60 FPS with ray tracing in the tech demo. So they're sitting here and admitting that on the PS5, that is going to be extremely difficult, let alone the Series S. The Series S is going to be even more difficult. So the PS5 is in this conversation as well. It's not just Xbox.
To figure out what needs to be done with the technology. And we also decided, okay, we need to have all those things that needs to be developed. Where we go from there, it's hard to say, but right now we really wanted to focus on what does it mean to make this ambition on a console. And we have all our other projects at 60 FPS, and we really wanted to also to aim for 60 FPS once again, and not go back to 30 FPS or something like that.
Yeah, and it was a mutually shared ambition together with Epic, right? So when we started talking about it, that I think that was literally like the first pillar we established together, that this is gonna be a console 60 FPS
no
demo.
Fake console 60 FPS, fit in memory,
constrained by platform, pretty much.
Yeah, it was a really good opportunity for
constrained by platform. It's incredible that they are willing to just be so limited and so constrained by hardware that clearly cannot handle their vision. They obviously have a vision that is well beyond the capabilities of most of the standard consoles, unfortunately. Obviously, the PS5 Pro might be a little bit of a different discussion, but even that system is still going to limit their ability to get their full vision realized. The only way they could get their full vision realized is to be on the platform that they've always been on, which is PC. But they are changing their tune because they got destroyed so hard with Cyberpunk 2077. This is going to be Cyberpunk all over again. I don't think it's going to be as bad. I don't think it's going to be mind's eye level bad, to be fair, but I think it's going to be bad. I think you are going to see a lot of the shortcuts that they had to take in order to come anywhere close to 60 FPS. And chances are you're going to experience 60 FPS on, let's say, traversing the landscape or going through, not so populated towns. But the moment you get to a scene that's highly populated, or the moment you get to a combat scenario that has a lot of particle effects, forget about it. You're going to go well below 60 FPS. It happens all the time, man. Even Final Fantasy 16 ran like crap on PS5, and that game was graphically pretty impressive. And The Witcher 4 is supposed to be more impressive with ray tracing, and it's going to hit 60 FPS, bro. I'm not believing it. I'm sorry. I haven't believed it since day one. You can call me a hater all you want, but I can't ignore the red flags, man.
For the engine as well to, use this as a demo and really showcase that 60 FPS on a base console is totally achievable with all the features that we have.
Yeah, that's quite different than the Matrix demo, for example, which was targeting 30 FPS and was the last time we saw, at least on the console side of things, a hardware ray tracing demo from Epic itself. But still, you're talking about 60 FPS versus 30. That's a whole bunch of frame time. Do you see this as a challenge?
So exactly, that Matrix demo, which everybody got to experience, by the way, the Matrix demo would have moments of lag, just FYI. It would have moments of lag. It ran pretty decently, but it had moments of lag. And that was at 30 FPS with ray tracing. So this game is supposed to look as good or better at 60 FPS with ray tracing. How is this going to be possible?
Limitation? How do you view it? Because strictly adhering to that in an open world is
So is it a challenge or a limitation? I'm going to safely say it's both, right? Because you are challenging yourself to be limited by hardware that is going to limit your vision. It's obviously a limitation. They may not want to say that because they don't want to piss off console players, or they don't want to piss off Sony or whoever, Xbox. It doesn't matter. It's absolutely a limitation. There's nothing wrong with saying that. Consoles are limited in their ability and what they can do. That's just the truth of it, no matter how much you may not want to admit it.
A mighty big challenge. How do you view it?
Yeah, so I think that at this stage, we are perfectly aware that we still have a lot of work ahead of us, right? So this is a tech demo. There is
So they say they still have a lot of work ahead of them, which means that they are nowhere near close to hitting 60 FPS with the supposed quality that they want to achieve with the tech demo. So that is all the proof that you need that the tech demo is bullshit. Because if they were able to do what the tech demo shows, they would not be saying they still have a lot of work ahead of them. So it's pretty clear, like I said when we were watching the tech demo, that it's all bullshit. The tech demo is absolutely bullshit.
Not the whole gameplay loop is implemented. There's no combat. There's a lot of things that doesn't work. But still, the ambition is set. So this is where we want to aim, and we'll be damned if we don't try to get this game in performance. It's too early to say if we manage to nail it, but we'll work as hard as we can to make it for sure.
Mm-hmm. At least based upon
It's too early to say whether or not we've nailed it. So that is literally admitting that they have not hit 60 FPS on any console, for that matter. And they're nowhere near hitting 60 FPS, but they sold you a tech demo and said that we're going to hit 60 FPS with ray tracing on consoles. Bro,
base rendering tech. It seems like it's at least there to get that part of it at 60 for the most part, because the demo is incredibly fluid. As I said, when we did the DF Direct on this, it doesn't drop a single frame. That is something you usually see in a demo like this. For example, the Matrix demo could drop frames if you go back in time to our coverage of it back then. So this was mighty impressive from that aspect. From Epic as well as from your side, hardware Lumen to this point has been on consoles other than on Fortnite's most recent season. That was a new thing. Been limited to 30 FPS ambitions typically. So what were the big roadblockers on a console like the PS5 from getting hardware Lumen up to within 16.6 milliseconds?
I mean, obviously it comes down to performance, right? And optimizations on both the GPU side and the CPU side. So on the CPU, there's been a ton of work on optimizing away a bunch of the cost on the critical path on the render thread. So, multi-threading things, removing all sync points that we don't need, allowing all types of primitives to actually time slice and not only landscape or something like that. That's for the dynamic parts. On the GPU, obviously tracing cost needs to be kept low. So, having good proxies, streaming in the right amount of stuff in the vicinity. These things just, making that work out of the box is core to the 60 FPS.
Mm-hmm. So why
this, what this all sounds like, just to be kind of as clear as possible, because I'm pretty much done with this video. There's not everything else after that is just talking about the game. But what this basically is this is them trying to jump through every possible loophole that they can jump through to try to attain 60 FPS. And I want to be very honest. If you have to jump through all of these loopholes, all of these fences you're jumping over to just try to hit 60 FPS and hit the goal in mind, that tells me that you're doing something heavily unnatural. You're doing something unnatural to the hardware that you're trying to perform it on. At this point, just sit there and admit that you would have been much better at 30 FPS on consoles to hit the fidelity that you want to hit, and then graphically reduce it drastically to hit 60 FPS, because they want to keep their fidelity and hit 60 FPS. But the simple fact is, you're probably not going to be able to pull that off. It's going to be extremely difficult to pull that off. And chances are, like I said earlier in the video, you're only going to be able to do it when the game is in a certain scenario that allows for it to happen. The moment combat hits, the moment any particle effects hit the screen, the moment a large amount of NPCs show up, or a big enemy shows up, whatever, you're going to frame dip so hard because the PS5 is trying to jump through all these loopholes to try to make it happen. And again, I want people who are watching the video to understand it's not just Xbox. They started off talking about Xbox, but they also named the PS5 in this as well. And they openly admitted, and they said that they have not hit the 60 FPS mark. They still got a lot of work to do on the PS5 itself. So it's not just Xbox, it's also PS5 as well. So at the end of the day, I think it's pretty clear that CD Projekt Red has not learned from their mistakes. They are continuing to do the same exact thing that they did with Cyberpunk, which is overpromise and underdeliver. No matter how much they are promising right now in the video that they'll be damned if they're not going to hit 60 FPS, it's going to be very hard. And even if they do, the amount of sacrifices they're going to have to make to get there is going to be ridiculous. And they're obviously going to have a 30 FPS mode that's going to have higher fidelity, and they're going to allow you to switch between the two in the menus. So this is just for their ego at this point, because they already promised it. They clearly didn't learn a single thing. They've promised it publicly. They told people 60 FPS with ray tracing publicly, and now they have to stick to it. Otherwise, they're going to have to do the walk of shame, and this is going to be the second time now. And people are going to look at them like, why are you doing this again? What the hell is the point? Why are you getting people's hopes up? It doesn't make sense, man. People would have been excited just to play The Witcher 4, and now you're promising something that you're not going to be able to deliver, and everybody knows it but you. It's unbelievable, man. Same thing every single time. They haven't learned a single thing. So regardless, you guys can let me know in the comments down below, what do you think? And be honest, do you think that CD Projekt Red is going to be able to hit 60 FPS with ray tracing? I want to be very clear, with ray tracing, because they haven't mentioned it in this video, and I don't know if they're hoping that people forgot about it, but they said 60 FPS with ray tracing. In this video, they're only talking about 60 FPS, and that's it. They haven't mentioned ray tracing. So I don't know if they're backtracking on that, or I don't know if they're hoping people forget, but they promised 60 FPS with ray tracing. You can let me know in the comments down below. Do they think they're going to hit it? If you think they will, yes, then tell me why. And if you think they won't, tell me why as well. Thank you guys so much for subscribing to the channel. I appreciate you, and I'll see you on the next one.